continuing to enjoy all of the wonderful fall things here on the homestead. We are making lots of soup, lots of yummy apple and pumpkin dishes, and I wanted to share some of that with you today. Join me for a fall day on the homestead. I have many different projects to do today, as always. Some of them are fun. Some of them are more necessary, like straightening up my homestead pantry, and I'll take you along for all of that. The first one is a fun project, and that is making our favorite caramel apple sourdough cinnamon rolls. Now, these are a twist on my favorite sourdough cinnamon rolls. And by the way, the recipes for all of these things that I'll be sharing with you today are on my recipe blog, wagonwheelhomestead.com. So as usual, I am just combining all of the dough ingredients in my Bosch mixer, letting them mix for a while and letting the sourdough work on the rest of the ingredients. So these will be long fermented and easily digested. So that just means letting the dough set out on the counter for a few hours. And in the meantime, I am working on the caramel apple filling. We had several hailstorms this summer, which you're aware of if you've been following along for a while. So our apples were very small and really dinged up, the few that I was able to harvest. But I'm still finding a way to make a few apple treats. Certainly not enough to can, but just a few things to enjoy. And so I'm just sauteing these apples in some butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon, adding a little bit of a cornstarch slurry, just a little cornstarch and water mixed together to thicken them up. And I will let these cool while I'm waiting on my dough to ferment. The other thing that you need to get started ahead of time for this recipe is the caramel, and it's not difficult at all to make your own caramel. It just takes paying attention a little bit to the instructions for making it so that it will turn out right. So what you want to do is just put some sugar a little bit at a time into a pot over medium-high heat and toast it until it starts to turn caramely. And this takes 10 minutes or less. It's not that big of a time investment. And again, the full instructions are in this printable recipe on the blog. And so once you get the sugar toasted and starting to caramelize, I add some fresh homemade butter from our Jersey cows, and then a little bit of cream, a little bit of salt and vanilla, and you have a wonderful caramel. This is a very thin caramel sauce. It works great in coffee or drizzled over ice cream, and it's perfect for these caramel apple cinnamon rolls. You certainly don't want a really thick caramel for this, just more of a caramel sauce, if you will. So we're just giving it a stir, careful not to burn it, and making it ahead of time so it will have time to cool before we want to drizzle it over our cinnamon rolls. And this is part of what makes these cinnamon rolls absolutely so decadent, and they're perfect for a dessert or even for a breakfast, as long as you add some kind of a protein source alongside, so it's not just pure sugar for breakfast. Something like eggs is a good choice. And so I'm just finishing heating this up, and we'll let it cool off to the side while we get the cinnamon rolls rolled out. So this dough, again, had been fermenting for a few hours, just rolling it out. And then I'm going to add that cooled off apple filling. And I guess first I did add a little bit of butter just to give it a little bit more creaminess, similar to what you would do with regular cinnamon rolls. Then adding the apple filling. It's nice and thick from the cornstarch that we added. Just spreading it out. And I like to cut these with a pizza cutter and then put them into my cast iron skillet to bake. Cast iron and sourdough really love each other because of the even baking temperature of the cast iron. The sourdough just does really well with that. And so you could roll these up like traditional cinnamon rolls and slice them. But my favorite way to make them more uniform is to slice them with a pizza cutter and then roll them up individually. So you can do them however you prefer. I like to just cut them in half, and then you can easily cut them into 12 equal slices and then roll them up individually, and they fit in the pan really nicely. Then we're going to bake these in a preheated 350-degree oven for 30 to 40 minutes. It does take longer to bake these than my traditional sourdough cinnamon rolls just because of all the apple filling. You want to make sure that the center is done, but these are ooey gooey and so delicious. Then you're going to want to mix up the caramel frosting. So it's just a classic cream cheese frosting with a bit of that caramel sauce that we made added to it. And we're just going to spread this on the cinnamon rolls and then drizzle it with a little bit more caramel on top, and you have the perfect fall treat. Project I'm working on today is making my annual batch of fire cider. So I make this every year, and then I take a shot of it usually like November, December, January, during the months when the cold and flu season is rampant, and it just helps to keep me well. Some members of my family just take a shot of it if they feel like sickness is coming on. I typically try to do the preventative method. But anyway, essentially what fire cider is just a collection of immune boosting things that are soaked in apple cider vinegar for about a month. Allow them to ferment and all the goodie to really get into the vinegar. And then you strain it off. You can just keep it in your cupboard, of course, because it's vinegar. It's not going to go bad. And then you can just take a little bit of it every day, and it will really keep you well. Like, I am not a doctor. I'm certainly not giving you medical advice, but this has worked for me for a long time, along with several other natural remedies that we use. But we like to make a batch of this every year. So really, there's not an exact recipe, although the guidelines for the recipe are on my blog. But what I'm doing is just putting some jalapeno peppers, some oranges, some lemons, some horseradish, some ginger, and chopping it all up. Garlic, did I say onion? And I did end up adding some rosemary to this at the end as well. And putting it all into a gallon jar. And then you just pour apple cider vinegar over the top. It's best if you use raw apple cider vinegar. And you pour that over the top, let it sit on your counter for a month or so, and then you have fire cider. It's really not that hard to make, and it's really great for your immune system. So this is some apple cider that I made last year when I did apples, and there's a recipe for how to make your own apple cider vinegar on the blog as well, out of apple scraps. It's really cool. Unfortunately, I did not have enough of that kind of raw apple cider vinegar for all of my fire cider, but I just topped it off with a little bit of regular apple cider from the store, which is not as beneficial health-wise, but it's better than nothing. And so I'm just filling these to the top. And then I will tell you one thing, if you have any fruit flies in your kitchen, which we all do this time of year just because of all the produce to process at the end of the season, the fruit flies really love this stuff because it's really good stuff. So I use plastic wrap and then another lid, and I really try to keep it sealed tightly so that none of the fruit flies can find their way in. And it's really pretty. You can leave it sitting on your counter for the month of October. I enjoy looking at it. And then, around the first part of November, I usually strain it off. Take a shot of it every day, and it really will keep you well. So if you want to make this without finding all the ingredients yourself, you can get a fire cider kit fairly inexpensively from Farmhouse Teas. And I have a link for Farmhouse Teas in the description of this video. So you can certainly go there and search for fire cider and just buy the kit as well. The other project I have today is a not so fun project for me, but it's one of those things that does need to be done. This is my homestead pantry, and for those of you that might be new here, I have a couple pantry tours on YouTube that you can look at, and I tell you everything that's in our pantry. This is really what feeds us year-round. So there's over 3,000 quart jars in our pantry, and I just had some straightening to do today. I needed to take a inventory of what I have, figure out what I need to order for flour, for wheat, and check on the status of some of the things that I've stored away in here, like the pumpkins, and the potatoes, and the onions. Make sure that I still have plenty of canning lids. And oftentimes I send my kids down here to get me whatever I need, whether that's broth or tallow or vegetables. And so, it doesn't stay nice and neat, right? Because they just grab whatever they can find and bring it to me, which is greatly appreciated. But every once in a while, I have to carve out some time to come down here and just clean and straighten and put away, make sure that we have all the things that we need before winter. So all of the things that we can produce from our garden and our orchard, we do, of course. But things that we can't produce, like wheat and flour and sugar, those kinds of things, we purchase in bulk from Azure Standard. And I'll put a link down in the description box below. You can get 15% off your first order of $100 or more from Azure Standard. And they have not only canned food, but herbs and spices and dry goods, and they're a great place to order some of your bulk ingredients and save a lot of money on your grocery bill. Here I'm putting away some of the salsa and the tomato products that I have canned, the spaghetti sauce, plain tomatoes, and these buckets are flour buckets that are empty, so I need to get a flour order put into Azure so that I can get some flour stocked up for the winter. I also do get some of my all-purpose flour from Sam's Club just because it is a little bit cheaper, but whenever possible, I try to get most of my ingredients from the family-run company of Azure Standard, and it just comes to a drop nearby me, and I can pick it up. Very simple and easy. So just again, doing a quick little straighten up, clean up in the pantry always feels good and helps me know what we need and what we might be out of. And for supper, I am making a soup. We eat a lot of soup these days. It just seems like the things that we've produced from our garden, the meat that we've raised on our homestead, all come together really easily in soup. And so soup and bread is one of my favorite things to make in the fall and winter. This particular soup is one of our favorites. It's called cheeseburger soup. And my husband always says, why do they call it cheeseburger soup? I don't really know why, except that it is absolutely delicious. So it's just a classic soup where you combine onions, garlic, carrots, potatoes. This is all things that we have produced in our garden. Even with the hail this year, the root crops seemed to do okay. So just chopping up some carrots, and then I'm going to be adding a whole bunch of beef broth. And again, you can find the recipe and the video tutorial on how I make and can all of our own broth on the blog or on our YouTube channel. And so all of those tips and tricks for how to can that are there. I really like to have a lot of broth on hand. It gives such great flavor and health benefits as well to your soups and stews throughout the winter. add some milk from our Jersey cows, and what I like to do to thicken a soup like this, because we like it creamy and nice and thick, is I'm going to add some cornstarch to this milk mixture and shake it up really good and make like a cornstarch slurry out of milk. And again, I buy my cornstarch in bulk from Azure Standard, so that's just one of those things. That's how I keep the cost really low, is not only do we produce a lot of our own food, but then we buy everything in bulk that we can, and it really does help to save money on your grocery bill, which is really important, of course, especially if you're feeding a large family. So I'm just going to put a lid on this jar and shake it up so that the cornstarch is really well incorporated. You don't want to just put cornstarch straight into a hot liquid because it will get all clumped up. So just shake it up in your milk or whatever else your broth would work as well, whatever you want to thicken. And then I'm just going to pour this in, and it's going to thicken up. We're going to add some cheese, and then we'll be ready to serve this with some sourdough cornbread, which I'll show you how to make as well. And so making soup and bread, sourdough bread or sourdough cornbread, dinner rolls in the winter, it's just such an easy way to feed your family. For the sourdough cornbread, this is a really simple recipe. You can make this ahead of time and let it ferment several hours, even mix it up and put the dough in the refrigerator. If you want to get all the long fermented health benefits from the sourdough, or because it has baking powder in it, you can mix it up and bake it right away. And it won't have as many long fermented benefits in it, but that's okay. You'll still have a really healthy, from scratch, inexpensive cornbread for your family. This is a really fluffy cornbread. We love it, and we really enjoy it left over in the morning with milk for breakfast. So if there's anything left over, it never goes to waste. Anyway, just mixing this all up, you can use sourdough discard, or you can use regular sourdough, active sourdough starter. If that's all you have in your fridge, it doesn't really matter at all, because we're going to depend on the baking powder to be our leavener. And I always like, again, to bake in my cast iron skillets. If you don't have a cast iron skillet, you can certainly use a 9x13 pan. That's no problem at all. But if you get the opportunity, I would encourage you to invest in a cast iron skillet, and I've got some links to my favorite ones in the blog. And so we're just going to pour this batter right into the skillet. Bake it at 400 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes, and you have a really easy side dish that goes well with soup and a little bit of honey and fresh butter, and your family will really enjoy this recipe. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed hanging out with me today, as we spent just a fall day doing all of the things that need to be done on the homestead. It always includes a lot of cooking, and so sharing those recipes with you today. And I just hope that you are enjoying fall wherever you are. The winter days will be here soon enough, and they are cozy as well, but fall is always my favorite. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, as we make at least one video every week here on homesteading. Feel free to share with all of your friends, and we will see you in the next video.